High Commander Zixtal of the Galactic Council's Research Division stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes, mandibles clicking in distress. The security footage playing before him had to be fabricated. There was simply no other explanation. Yet the quantum authentication signatures were genuine, and this was a direct feed from one of their most reliable reconnaissance drones. The footage showed a human settlement, primitive by galactic standards, but fascinating in its own right. But what had caused the normally stoic commander's kitten to pale wasn't the architecture or technology. It was what the humans were doing. They were casually handling, storing, and most horrifyingly, consuming pure dihydrogen monoxide in massive quantities. Impossible. He chittered, his secondary arms twitching nervously. Run the analysis again. Sir, his assistant Kirthi responded, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with anxiety. We've run it 16 times. The results are consistent. These creatures not only survive constant exposure to DHNO, they require it for biological functions. Their bodies are approximately 60% pure weapons-grade hydro. The implications were staggering. For 3 millennia, the weaponized form of DHMO had been the galaxy's most feared weapon of mass destruction. The hydro wars had devastated entire sectors, turning thriving worlds into frozen wastelands or scalding death traps. The mere possession of weapons-grade hydro was enough to warrant immediate military intervention from the Council's peacekeeping forces. Yet here was an entire species that not only survived exposure but had evolved to depend on it. The footage showed humans casually filling containers with the substance, children playing in pools of nearly pure DHMO, vast networks of pipes carrying millions of tons of it directly into their dwellings. Their young, Zixtal observed with horror. They immersed their young in it for recreation. The council chamber erupted in chaos when Zixtal presented his findings. Representatives from 100 species argued, some calling for immediate quarantine of the human system, others demanding military action before these hydro-demons could pose a threat to galactic peace. Order. The Grand Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with authority. We must approach this situation with logic. These humans have not shown aggression. They appear to be unaware of Hydro's military applications. Unaware. The Pyrexian delegate's flame form flickered violently. They pump it through their cities. They spray it on burning buildings. They use it to clean their surfaces. One human contains enough weapons-grade hydro to level a small settlement if properly weaponized. The debate raged for days. Surveillance footage showed humans using their hydro mastery in countless ways, generating power through its movement, using its frozen form for recreation, even altering its chemical composition to create countless beverages and solutions. Most disturbing to the Council was humanity's apparent immunity to Hydro's destructive effects. Where other species would dissolve, corrode, or suffer catastrophic molecular breakdown, humans simply called it getting wet and continued about their business. The final shock came when the linguistic team decoded enough human communication to realize they had multiple words and classifications for their weapon of choice. They called it water, ice, steam, rain, snow, celebrating its presence in art and culture rather than fearing its destructive potential. Zixtal spent countless cycles analyzing the data, trying to understand how evolution could produce such a species. The implications for military strategy alone were paradigm-shifting. How do you threaten a species that bathes in death? What leverage exists against beings who can survive direct exposure to the galaxy's deadliest substance? As the Council argued, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the panic they were causing among the stars. They continued their daily routines, drinking their hydro, swimming in their hydro, watering their plants with hydro, all while inadvertently establishing themselves as the most terrifying species the galaxy had ever encountered. Perhaps, Zixtal finally suggested to the Council, we should reconsider our classification of humans as a primitive species. Any being that can master hydro at this level deserves our utmost respect and caution. The Council would soon learn that humanity's relationship with water was just the beginning of their surprising capabilities. But for now, they watched with a mixture of terror and fascination as these hydro-demons continued their impossible existence, rewriting everything the galaxy thought it knew about the substance that had shaped interstellar politics for millennia. As Zixtal prepared his final report, he couldn't help but wonder, what other impossibilities would these humans casually prove possible? And more importantly, what would happen when they finally realized the power they had quite literally been born with? The archives of the Galactic Council held many dark secrets, but none darker than the complete historical record of the Water Wars. Senior archivist Valera floated in her suspension field, her crystalline form refracting the soft light as she compiled the briefing for the Council's Human Assessment Committee. 3,000 years ago, before the Council, before the peace, the galaxy had been a very different place. The discovery of hydro-manipulation technology by the now extinct Aquari species had changed everything. They had found a way to weaponize the most abundant molecular compound in the galaxy, what humans casually called water. Valera projected the historical footage into the chamber. The first deployment of a hydro weapon had been against the Pyraxian colonies in the Outer Rim. The footage showed the horror as weaponized water molecules tore through energy shields, extinguishing the flame-based life forms in seconds. An entire civilization nearly wiped out in one campaign. But the Aquari's dominance didn't last long. Other species learned to replicate and enhance the technology. The Crystalline Confederacy developed ice bombs that could freeze entire cities. The Silicon Alliance created steam cannons that could reduce carbon-based life forms to ash. The arms race had begun. The next footage is from the Battle of Seven Stars. Valera narrated to her recording device. The first time multiple hydro weapons were used simultaneously in a major conflict. The projection showed an entire star system torn apart. Hydro torpedoes created artificial oceans that drowned worlds. Orbital platforms flash-froze spacecraft, with their crews still inside. Steam clouds corrupted planetary atmospheres, making them uninhabitable for centuries. The worst came when the Desiccator was unveiled, a superweapon that could extract every water molecule from a living being, leaving nothing but dust. The footage from that era was restricted to highest-level clearance, the screams of the victims still haunting those few who had access to the records. This is why the Council banned all weaponized applications of hydrotechnology. Valera continued. The galaxy nearly destroyed itself. 97 species went extinct. Thousands of worlds were rendered uninhabitable. The survivors agreed. Never again would water be used as a weapon. She paused the playback, her crystalline form dimming with emotion. And then we found the humans. The contrast was shocking. Valera pulled up the recent surveillance footage alongside the historical records. Where the water wars showed hydro weapons bringing death and destruction, the human recordings showed life. They used water to grow food, to clean, to heal, to celebrate. They drink it, Valera noted with lingering disbelief. They willingly put into their bodies the same substance that nearly ended galactic civilization. Not just drinking, they dive into collected masses of it for recreation. They stand under falling streams of it to clean themselves. They freeze it and shape it into art. The implications were staggering. Every human city was, by council laws, a weapons depot. Every human body was a walking arsenal. Their planet's weather systems would classify as ongoing weapons deployment under current regulations, yet they didn't see it that way at all. Valera added a personal notation to her report. Perhaps we have been looking at water wrong all this time. The Aquari saw it as a weapon. The Council sees it as a threat, but humans see it as a fundamental part of life itself. Their mastery over water comes not from a desire to destroy, but from a deep biological and cultural connection to it. She included footage of human children splashing in puddles, of farmers irrigating crops, of scientists studying water's molecular properties. Each image would have triggered immediate military response protocols just cycles ago. Now, They'd prompted a different kind of fear, not of destruction, but of how fundamentally wrong the galaxy's most advanced civilizations might have been. Final notation. Valera recorded, "The humans have achieved something no other known species has managed. They have tamed water, not through technology or weapons research, but through evolution and adaptation. They don't control it. They coexist with it. And that makes them more powerful than any hydro weapon ever created." As she sealed the archive, Valera pondered the future. The water wars had nearly destroyed the galaxy. The peace that followed was built on fear and restriction. But humans offered a third path, one where water could be mastered without being weaponized, where the substance that had brought so much death could instead sustain life. The question now wasn't whether humans would change galactic society, but how dramatically. As she prepared to present her findings to the Council, Valera knew one thing with certainty: the galaxy would never look at water, or humans, the same way again. Ambassador Sarah Chen of the United Earth Government had prepared for every conceivable first contact scenario. She'd studied synapsychology, mastered nonverbal communication techniques, and memorized thousands of potential cultural taboos. What she hadn't prepared for was an entire alien delegation refusing to enter the conference room because she was leaking weapons-grade material. "I assure you," she said to the environmental suit-clad aliens through their communication system, "what you're detecting is just normal human perspiration. It's a natural cooling process." The delegation from the Galactic Council buzzed with alarm. Their translator rendered their chittering response. "You're actively dispersing hydroparticles into the atmosphere as a biological function." Chen fought the urge to sigh, knowing it would only release more moisture into the air. The first contact ceremony, meant to be humanity's grand entrance into the galactic community, had ground to a halt before it even began. The alien representatives stood clustered at the far end of the hallway, their various environmental sensors blinking in panic. "Perhaps," suggested Dr. James Martinez, the team's xenobiologist, "we should address the water situation directly. They clearly know about it, and dancing around the issue isn't helping." Chen nodded. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council, let's discuss what seems to be the primary concern. Yes, humans are water-based life forms. Our bodies contain it, we require it to live, and our civilization is built around its manipulation and use. We understand this may be unsettling to you." The alien delegation huddled together, their translators working overtime as they discussed this frank admission. Finally, the lead representative, a towering crystalline being named Varks, stepped forward. "You speak of it so casually." Varks's translated voice held a mix of fear and fascination. "Do you not understand? What you call water has destroyed civilizations. The last species that tried to weaponize it caused a war that nearly ended all galactic civilization." Chen blinked. "Weaponize water? Why would we? I mean, yes, water can be dangerous in certain forms, but it's also essential for life as we know it." "Life as you know it," corrected another delegate, this one a silicon-based entity. "To most species, direct contact with hydroparticles means death. Yet you are filled with it. You drink it. You willingly submerge yourselves in it. It defies all known biological principles." A moment of clarity struck Chen. She turned to Martinez, whispering, "They're not afraid of us. They're afraid for us. They think we're somehow surviving constant exposure to a deadly weapon." The human delegation shared looks of growing understanding, every gesture of peace they planned. A water fountain in the reception area, the drinks they'd prepared, even the floral arrangements, would have appeared to the aliens as casual displays of devastating weaponry. "Honored delegates," Chen addressed the aliens again, "I believe we have an opportunity here. You see water as a weapon because of your history with it. We see it as life because that's what it means to us. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Varks's crystalline form shimmed with interest. "You would share your immunity." "Better," Chen smiled. "We could share our understanding. Water isn't just a weapon or a threat. It's a tool, a resource, a cradle of life itself. Our scientists have spent centuries studying its properties, not for warfare, but for sustaining and improving life. The alien delegation's sensors stopped their panic blinking. Several members began cautiously approaching, their scientific curiosity overtaking their ingrained fear. "Show us," Varks requested. What followed was perhaps the strangest first contact presentation in human history. The human delegation demonstrated everyday water usage, from drinking a glass of water to washing hands. Each mundane act was met with gasps of astonishment from the aliens. The real breakthrough came when Martins projected the molecular structure of water and began explaining its role in human biochemistry. The alien scientists were captivated, their fear gradually transforming into fascination. "Remarkable," one alien scientist muttered. "They haven't conquered water. They've evolved to harmonize with it. Their entire biology is a testament to adaptation rather than domination." By the end of the day, the initial terror had given way to cautious excitement. The galactic community had discovered something unprecedented. A species that didn't need to fear the galaxy's most devastating weapon because they had made peace with it millennia ago. As Chen prepared her first official report to Earth's government, she couldn't help but smile at the section titles. Diplomatic relations complicated by human biology. Water. From weapon of war to symbol of peace, and her personal favorite, humanity's superpower, being mostly water. The galaxy would need time to adjust to humans and their casual relationship with water. But as Chen watched the alien delegates cautiously accepting glasses of water for chemical analysis, she knew that humanity's entrance into the galactic community would be anything but boring. Admiral Helena Rodriguez stood at the viewport of the UES watershed, watching as her engineering teams helped repair the Crystalline Confederation's primary water filtration facility. Below, human technicians in standard work suits moved confidently through chambers that would have killed any other species in the galaxy. No environmental suits, no force fields. Just humans doing what they did best, working with water. Remarkable. Ambassador Varks's crystalline form shimmered with amazement. "Your species accomplishes in hours what would take our automated systems weeks to complete, and you do it without any fear." "Fear only gets in the way of understanding," Rodriguez replied, recalling her grandmother's words from long ago. "Water follows universal principles. Once you understand those principles, you can work with them instead of against them." In the 5 years since first contact, humanity had transformed from a curiosity to an indispensable part of galactic society. Their unique ability to safely handle and manipulate water had made them the galaxy's premier experts in everything from terraforming to spacecraft cooling systems. The watershed itself was a testament to this transformation. What other species saw as a heavily armed warship, humans recognized as a mobile disaster response and engineering platform. Its holds were filled not with weapons, but with water purification systems, atmospheric processors, and terraforming equipment. Its crews weren't soldiers, but engineers, scientists, and environmental specialists. Status report. Rodriguez called over the comm. "Main filtration matrix is at 89% efficiency." "Admiral," Chief Engineer Patel responded, "we've identified the original design flaw. The crystalline engineers were so afraid of water contact that they over-engineered the containment systems. All that extra shielding was actually causing molecular stress that led to system degradation." Rodriguez nodded. It was a common problem they encountered. Species across the galaxy had spent so long viewing water as a weapon that they'd forgotten its fundamental nature. Their technology reflected their fear. Layers of containment, fail-safes upon fail-safes, rigid control systems that fought against water's natural properties instead of working with them. Humanity's approaches were revolutionizing everything. Their water management systems were elegantly simple compared to alien designs. Their terraforming techniques could make worlds habitable in decades instead of centuries. Even their spacecraft were more efficient, using water's properties for cooling, radiation shielding, and even propulsion in ways the galaxy had never imagined. "Admiral," her communications officer interrupted. "Priority message from Galactic Council Security. We have a situation in the Pyraxian sector. Class 5 hydrostorm threatening 3 colonial worlds." Once, such news would have sparked panic. Now, it was routine. The Waterst was one of dozens of human-operated ships that served as the galaxy's premier disaster response force. "Plot a course," Rodriguez ordered. "Varks, would you like to observe our storm containment procedures?" The ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. Like many alien scientists, they had become fascinated by humanity's intuitive understanding of water dynamics. Where other species saw chaos in a hydrostorm, humans saw patterns. Where others fought against water's movement, humans guided it. As the Waterst entered hyperspace, Rodriguez reviewed the latest reports from Earth. The Human Water Initiative was transforming the galaxy. Human engineers were redesigning alien water systems for improved efficiency. Human scientists were developing new applications for water in medicine, agriculture, and energy production. Human diplomats were helping species overcome their hydrophobia through careful education and demonstration. But perhaps most importantly, humanity's influence was changing how the galaxy viewed water itself. Species that had feared it for millennia were learning to respect and understand it instead. The Pyraxians, once nearly wiped out by water weapons, were now leading research into steam-based energy systems under human guidance. The Silicon Alliance had revolutionized their agriculture using human irrigation techniques. "It's not about mastery," Rodriguez explained to Varks as they approached the storm system. "It's about harmony. Water isn't a weapon or a tool. It's a partner. It shapes us as much as we shape it." They watched as human teams deployed into the storm, their ships dancing through the water currents like ancient sailing vessels riding ocean waves. Where alien technology would have tried to brute force the storm into submission, the humans worked with its natural flows, gradually guiding it away from populated areas. "Your species," Varks observed, "turns what we saw as our greatest weakness into your greatest strength. You don't just survive water, you thrive on it. You understand it in ways we never could." Rodriguez smiled. "That's because we never tried to conquer it. We evolved with it, learned from it, built our civilization around it. Water isn't our enemy or our weapon. It's part of who we are." As the storm dissipated under their careful guidance, Rodriguez thought about how far they'd come. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as a curiosity, feared for their natural connection to the galaxy's deadliest substance. Now they were its guardians, teaching ancient civilizations that the force they had feared for so long could be the key to their future. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had changed dramatically in the 20 years since humanity's first contact. The most obvious change was the central fountain, a masterpiece of human hydroengineering that defied traditional alien fears. Representatives from 100 species now gathered around it comfortably, some even daring to touch the flowing water with specialized sensors. Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's chief science ambassador, stood before the assembled council, her presentation drawing to a close. Behind her, holographic displays showed the latest statistics. Thousands of worlds terraformed, countless water-based technologies revolutionizing everything from medicine to space travel, and most importantly, the lowest level of interspecies conflict in recorded galactic history. 20 years ago, she began her concluding remarks. This council viewed water as the galaxy's greatest threat. The mere presence of humans, beings composed largely of water, caused panic. Today, we celebrate what we've achieved together through understanding rather than fear. The council chamber hummed with agreement. Even the Pyraxians, their flame forms once devastated by water weapons, now maintained stable colonies thanks to human-designed atmospheric control systems that worked with water vapor instead of fighting against it. The Water Academy on Earth has graduated its 10,000th alien student, Patel continued. Beings who once feared water now understand it. They've learned not just to survive it, but to work with it, to see it as we do, as the foundation of life itself. High Counselor Varix, their crystalline form now decorated with intricate water-channeling patterns, a fashion trend started by human artists, rose to speak. When humans first joined our community, many feared they would use their natural advantage to dominate us. Instead, they chose to teach us, to help us overcome our fears, to show us a better way. The chamber's displays shifted to show scenes from across the galaxy. Crystalline children learning to safely interact with water in specially designed educational facilities. Silicon Alliance engineers working alongside humans to develop new irrigation systems. Even Pyraxian scientists studying water's role in thermal regulation. But perhaps our greatest achievement, Paddle smiled, isn't technological at all. It's the change in how we view our differences. Humanity's relationship with water once terrified you. Now it serves as proof that what one species fears, another might embrace. That understanding has transformed how we approach all our differences. She gestured to the data streams showing the dramatic decline in interspecies conflicts. The galaxy had learned that if they could overcome their ancient fear of water, they could overcome anything. Species that once saw their biological differences as barriers now saw them as opportunities for collaboration and mutual learning. The water wars nearly destroyed this galaxy, Varix noted. Now, water brings us together. Human water management techniques have made hostile worlds habitable. Their understanding has turned our greatest fear into our greatest tool for peace. The council chamber's atmosphere shifted as a light rain began to fall. Another human innovation, a ceremonial feature that would have been unthinkable 2 decades ago. Now representatives watched in fascination as the perfectly controlled droplets created beautiful patterns in the air. We propose, Varix announced, the establishment of the Galactic Water Institute, to be headquartered on Earth, a place where all species can learn not just about water, but about overcoming their fundamental fears through understanding and cooperation. The vote was unanimous. Species that had once gone to war over water now united to study it. The Institute would become a symbol of how far they'd come, and how far they could still go. As the session concluded, Patel met with a group of young alien scientists, each specialized in adapting human water management techniques to their own biology. Their questions showed how much had changed, no longer asking how to defend against water, but how to better understand it. The funny thing, she told them, is that humans never saw ourselves as water masters. We're just another species that evolved to work with it rather than against it. The real breakthrough wasn't in our technology or our biology, it was in our perspective. Looking out over the council chamber, watching representatives from once hostile species discussing water management techniques like old colleagues, Paddle reflected on humanity's journey. They had entered the galactic stage as feared water demons, only to become teachers, partners, and ultimately, pioneers of a new way of thinking. The galaxy had feared water for millennia, building its civilizations around that fear. Humanity had shown them another way, not through conquest or dominance, but through understanding and adaptation. In teaching others to overcome their fear of water, they had taught the galaxy how to overcome its fears of difference itself. As the ceremonial rain continued its gentle fall, creating ripples in the central fountain, Paddle smiled at the poetry of it all. The substance that had once threatened to tear the galaxy apart had become the force that united it. Not through war or weapons, but through the simple human understanding that some forces are better worked with than fought against.